The Gospel of Matthew contains 5 discourses, and the first of these is the Sermon on the Mount, found in chapters 5 to 7. It begins in chapter 5, verse 1, when Jesus goes up to the mountain, which is why it is called the Sermon on the Mount, and ends in chapter 7, verse 29, when the crowds are amazed at the teaching of Jesus. The sermon is divided into a variety of parts. Our gospel text of today is from Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 to 37, which speaks about the theme of the sermon and gives an explanation about that theme through 4 examples. At the beginning of the gospel text of today, Jesus says emphatically that he has not come to abolish the law. He has not come to do away with the law. He has come to reinterpret the law. He has come to move the focus of the law merely from external observance, from following the rule, from following the letter of the law, to assimilating the spirit of the law. Sometimes the letter of the law might be too regimental, might be too rigid, and it needs to be reinterpreted. It needs to be internalized, which is what Jesus is advocating in the gospel text of today. And in each of these 4 antitheses, Jesus speaks about what was said in the Old Testament and what he wants that people and his disciples do today. The first of these is about killing. Killing was prohibited, Jesus says, of old. No one has the right to take the life of another. And so Jesus begins the first of the 4 antitheses by speaking about how it was said in the Old Testament that you must not kill. And anyone who kills has to answer for it. Jesus, however, focuses not so much on the extreme of killing, but also of anger within one's heart against another. And he says, if there is this anger in my heart against another because I believe that the other has wronged me, the sooner I get rid of that anger, the better. Because the anger which is in my heart will prevent me from seeing myself as I am, from seeing others as they are, and from seeing God as God is. Modern doctors today are all saying to us that these negative emotions like anger and revenge and hate eat at our insides and cause the external ailments that we suffer from. So anger is responsible for high blood pressure. Anger is responsible for hypertension. Anger is responsible for every other kind of ailment which does not allow me to be the kind of person that I am. Also, if I am angry with another, it does not allow me to see the person as he or she is. It is true that sometimes people betray us. It is true that sometimes people let us down. It is true that sometimes people do not come up to our expectations. When that happens, then we are careful the next time that we are not led astray by the same person. If that happens, we are careful the next time that we don't expect too much of this person. But if I continue to be angry against that person, I am affecting no one but myself. Surely we must take action against the betrayal. Surely we must take action against being let down. Surely we must try to rectify the betrayal or the mistake which the other has made. But we can do that. We can take all the action we need. We can take effective action and efficacious action, an action that is relevant but without being angry. And so Jesus gives very, very practical advice in the gospel text of today when he invites us not merely not to use physical attack against someone, but even to let go of the anger from my heart so that I can be the kind of person that I am. The second is about adultery. And Jesus speaks about a relationship between a man and a woman. Jesus speaks about a relationship between a couple. And Jesus says fidelity is something that is required. The couple needs to trust each other. The couple needs to have their confidence in each other. The couple needs to have faith in each other. And adultery is something that is not only prohibited by Jesus, but he even says that we should avoid looking at anyone with a selfish motive, with a sexual motive, and even with a selfish motive. If I use people, I am really missing the point, because people are to be respected and things are to be used. Very often in our life, we respect things, but we use people. And so Jesus is calling us that when we look at others, to look at them with selfless eyes, not to look how a person can appeal to my senses, not to see how a person can cater to my needs, but to see how a person can be seen as a person in him or herself, and to reach out to that person as a person and not as a thing. In the third antithesis, Jesus speaks about divorce and how in the Old Testament it was allowed. Divorce follows after the question on adultery, because often divorce is gone into because one partner has been unfaithful to another. There are a variety of other reasons for divorce, but this is one of the main causes: infidelity or adultery. And that's why Jesus continues his discourse when he speaks about a person who is never allowed to divorce. And the reason why Jesus prohibits divorce is because from the beginning, God created that people should be together, that a man and woman should come to be together. And that is why, beginning from the book of Genesis and repeated by Jesus in the scriptures, we are told a person leaves their family and clings to the partner that they have accepted. So the two become one, and they are no longer two, but one. If they are one, they cannot be separated. If they are one, they cannot be divorced. So Jesus is calling once again through this antithesis for fidelity to whatever commitment I make. Jesus is not merely talking about married couples. He's not talking merely about married people and about divorce in marriage. He's talking about anyone who makes a commitment to a state of life. So I can interpret what Jesus is saying to my life as a priest. I have to be faithful to my vows. I have to be faithful to my commitment to the Lord. Since I have chosen this way of life, I have to see it through. Are there challenges in my life? Surely there are. Are there beautiful moments in my life? There are more beautiful moments than challenges. Yes, there are. But because there are challenges, I don't give up this way of life. Because there are challenges in a relationship, because there are challenges in marriage, because there are challenges as a bachelor or the spinster or as a priest or as a religious, I don't give up my way of life. I face those challenges squarely with confidence that the Lord is behind me, the Lord walks by my side, and the Lord accompanies me. So I don't divorce from my way of life. I am faithful to the commitment I have made, and I will persevere in this commitment to the end. And the fourth antithesis is about oaths. There is no need to invoke the name of God when there is no need. And there is almost no need to invoke the name of God to prove my truth. And Jesus says, very simply, if you mean yes, say yes. If you mean no, say no. Why do you want God to call upon as a witness? Why do you want God to testify to what you are saying? If you are true to yourself, and if you know that you are true to yourself, then you will simply say yes or no. So the prohibition of oaths, because God is God and we must let God be God, we must remember that we are humans and we have to behave like humans. In the second reading of today, Paul tells his disciples how this mystery, which was hidden from the world from the beginning of creation, is now revealed. And the mystery that is revealed is the Lord himself. And the reason why this mystery is revealed is to show us the way. Jesus speaks of himself as the way which leads to the truth, which leads to life. If we hear the words of God, if we hear the words of the Lord, if we assimilate those words and live them out in our lives, then we can have, like he has promised, life in all its fullness, the fullness